Rock Transformations Unit, Lesson 2.1, Exploring How Magma and Sediment Form. Activity 2, Exploring How Magma and Sediment Form. Here's what your student screen looks like for this part of the lesson. To determine where the magma and sediment came from, we will investigate this question. What causes sediment and magma to form? You and a partner will use the sim to create magma and sediment. You'll need to focus on observing how and where the magma and sediment form. You can use the menu to apply processes to different areas to make sediment and magma. However, for this activity, don't use the Add Sediment button. Students, complete the sim activity. What processes make sediment form? You might say, sediment is formed by weathering rock, which is when water flows over the rock and it breaks into tiny pieces. What process makes magma form? Magma is formed by melting rock underground. Here's what your student screen looks like for this part of the lesson. Let's discuss where the processes you observed in the sim happen. Where is rock that can be weathered found? You might say, at the surface, higher than the ocean. Where is rock that can be melted found? You might respond, underground, in the mantle. We know that weathering and melting are what cause sediment and magma to form, but we need to think about what causes these processes to occur. As we work to determine the history of each rock formation formed in the Rocky Mountains and Great Plains, we should consider what causes rock materials to change in different ways and why these processes occur in different places. All rocks and minerals are made of matter. In order for matter to change, energy is needed. Next, you'll explore the energy mode of the sim. We have been investigating changes to rock matter. A change can be chemical if it happens at the scale of atoms and molecules, or it can be a physical change that happens at a larger scale. Thinking about energy sources helps geologists understand why they are different processes. In energy mode, you'll see two energy sources, Sun and Earth's interior. You can use the menu to turn the energy sources on and off and explore their effects. In the sim, we saw that rock is melted to form magma, and rock is weathered to make sediment. As we investigate, we'll think about these questions. Where does the energy to transform rock into magma come from? Where does the energy to transform rock into sediment come from? You'll need to split up your observation tasks for this sim mission. Decide who will observe with only energy from the sun and who will observe with only energy from Earth's interior. With the sim in energy mode, turn on the energy source you choose and observe what happens. Discuss and respond to the questions. Students, take a couple of minutes to work individually or in pairs with one energy source. Share your observations and answer the discussion questions with your partners or groups. Let's discuss what you noticed and how you responded to the questions. Each of you made detailed observations in the sim of how energy sources affect rock on Earth. Energy from the sun causes weathering and the breakdown of rock into small pieces. Energy from inside Earth can melt rock deep underground. Both of these processes are necessary for rocks to be part of the system of constant change that exists on Earth. Here's what your student screen looks like for this part of the lesson. Vocabulary. Energy. The ability to make things move or change. Energy is needed to cause weathering, changing rock into sediment. It is also needed to cause melting, changing rock to magma. Energy is needed for any matter to change. Here's what your student screen looks like for this part of the lesson. Vocabulary. Weathering. The process of rock breaking down into smaller pieces due to wind or moving water. Energy from the sun causes weathering. Weathering happens when wind or water breaks down into sediment. Vocabulary. Erosion. The movement of sediment from one place to another, often caused by wind or flowing water. As you saw in the sim, the wind and water that cause weathering can also cause sediment to move to another location, downhill for example. This movement of sediment is called erosion. We explored energy sources in the sim. Next, let's watch a video to find out more about how energy from the sun drives weathering of rock into smaller pieces. Listen carefully as you watch. Students, play the video. How does weathering affect rock formations? How does energy from the sun lead to weathering? What is the role of erosion in rock transformation? Let's discuss how energy from the sun leads to rock breaking down into smaller pieces. We'll think through each step of the process. We might respond, energy from the sun heats Earth's surface. That energy is then transferred to the atmosphere and makes weather. Example, wind and rain happen. The wind and rain break down rock into smaller pieces. Wind and rain also move those pieces to a low place in the landscape where they're deposited in a pile and eventually buried. Weathering can happen underground too. Caves like this one can form when water flows underground and wears away rock over a long period of time. This cave is part of a large group of caves called the Lake Shasta Caverns in Northern California. Caves can provide habitat for some kinds of organisms. What kinds of animals or plants do you think might live in a cave? Bats, fish, etc. The water that weathers rock underground contains chemicals and small particles from the rock. Do you think this might affect organisms such as fish that need the water to survive? If so, how might it affect them? Think of both positive and negative effects of these interactions. End of activity. Be sure to complete all your student work in Amplify for this activity before moving on.